So last week on the Writer's Hive, we talked about goal setting, and that was on my channel, which I will link for you in case you missed that. But today we're going to go into some of my personal goals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recap my quarterly goals for quarter 4 of 2021, and then review all of the projects that I'd like to do for 2022. Be sure to stay tuned for the end, where I give you a special coupon code for a sale going on my website. If you don't already know me, hi, my name is Caitlin Duncan, and I am a hybrid author, which means I publish both traditional and independent books. Here on my channel, we talk about the writing process and all the bookish things, so be sure to subscribe if that at all interests you and ring the notification bell so you know the next time I upload. First, I'm going to start off with the recap of my goals from quarter 4 of 2021, and then jump into a little different segment for my channel on what I want to do for 2022. I recently saw Courtney from the Courtney Project here on YouTube do a little bit of a screen share, and I love that idea, so I'm going to jump into that for you right now. Thank you so much, Courtney, for the tip. Alright, so here we are to review the video I did in, I believe, October of 2021, and we're going to figure out what I said I was going to do last quarter. I know what I did, and she was so precious, that one, thinking we had all of the goals happening, but I'm not going to spoil you for what you're going to see. So let's dive right in. So my first goal is to self-publish my adult thriller, which I had queried last year. Ultimately, I did not receive any offers, which is totally fine. And coming up in a couple weeks, I'm actually going to peel back the layers a little bit in terms of my experience with traditional publishing and a lot of my reasons for pulling this book out of the queue. I actually did do a video on that. I will link it in the cards, and I still feel the same way currently. Query trenches. So this book is obviously query ready. So it has gone through critique partners, and it has gone through self-edits, and it was ready to go basically for agents. I received a lot of positive feedback, which meant the book was maybe nearly there, maybe not exactly what they were looking for. There isn't a lot of changes I need to do, but I am going through another self-edit. It's been a year since I've looked at this book. It seems like forever, and I want to go through it again to make sure everything is perfect, because now I'm the one who's going to be preparing it for publication. It's not going through an agent and through an editor, through a publisher, so I have to make sure it's perfect. So here are some of the projects that I'm going to do. Yeah, I think I worded that goal a little differently. I wasn't going to publish it this year, but it kind of sounded like I was. So it was for me to prepare it to publish, and I sort of did that. There were a lot of changes with this book. I actually had given it to a critique partner who I had worked with previously when it was actually a young adult version of this book. She had some thoughts about the book, and her thoughts were completely valid, but it also made me rethink the book a little bit, and I actually changed up what I was doing, but I'm going to listen to my projects first and see exactly what I said to prepare this book for publication. So I'm going to go through for editorial changes, probably another pass or two. My final read-throughs, I find I do best on my iPad. I love using my iPad and my Apple Pencil to be able to make changes to my book. I just love having the different visual of it so that I can see it as a book. Digital book nonetheless, but it really helps save on paper. And then I will do a final edit with Pro Writing Aid. Now, this book is going into copy edits in January, so I'm going to stop myself right there. So I did end up going through this book with a pass, and then I sent it to that critique partner. I didn't do the Pro Writing Aid because I figured if there was any issues, I just send it to her and then do like that final pass. I still love working on my iPad, but I canceled my copy edit for January. I rescheduled it. I realized after I spoke with my critique partner that the book was not ready to go in January, and it was just a lot of pressure for me to do that. So I had already paid the deposit, so I was able to reschedule. So I have that scheduled for later in 2022. I have 3 months to edit this book. It's not going to take me 3 months to edit this book to get it ready for the copy editor. So in that time, these are some tasks that I hope to do. I hope to create a launch plan for this book. This book is going to go through a different launch plan than my young adult books. I have some different ideas that I want to do for this book. I want to set it up for pre-order, and I don't have that date available yet, but I should have that very soon. And I also want to set up a cover reveal. I'm unsure of how I want to do this yet, whether I'm going to use the readers that I already have or I'm going to use a service, but hopefully I'll have that figured out by the end of the quarter. So goal number 2 is no, I did not. So like I said, that book is sort of at a standstill right now. I do have it out with my previous editor, my developmental editor for this book. She's also my line editor, and she does 2 passes. So actually, after I received critique partner feedback, I had a conversation with her, and she's going to review the book after I had made all of her changes in addition to some of my own. So we shall see. This book is still going to go through all of these different marketing plans, and I still need to plan the cover reveal and things like that, but it is not anytime soon, and I'm not going to put a date on it until I actually have a date. That's something that I decided later in 2021 to do, is like not move forward with anything until absolutely am ready to give it to someone else, and I'm not going to be pushing myself on too many deadlines. I am just way too busy with my life, my day job, child, everything. I feel okay about that, so we shall see. So we're moving on now to goal number 2. To edit the second book in the Life After series, Soul Possessed, for publication. Now, I completed a skeleton draft earlier this year, which basically means that I went through as quick as I could through this process of writing and drafting, and I got down this main skeleton of the story, everything I knew about the story already. Even though I published this book before, and most of the story is staying the same, I wanted to start from scratch with this book somewhat so that I could really embed my current writing process into this series. And also, I changed the ending of Soul Taken a little bit, so the beginning of Soul Possessed is a little bit different, so I have to rework that. And also, I'm going to bring a little more life to some of the side characters that I really want to explore when I'm rewriting the series. I always consider my skeleton drafts draft 0, so my projects for this goal are to complete a first draft. I'm going to self-edit that first draft. I'm going to do a read-through for myself, as I mentioned, on the iPad. That really helps me get a lot of my inconsistencies or little nuances of my writing that I really can't see when they're on a computer screen. And this is actually going to a developmental editor that I used for Soul Taken. All of my books have different processes now that I'm indie publishing. I look at each book as their own individual entity. So this book, I will be using a developmental editor. She's sort of like my critique partner in the sense where I'm not having critique partners look at this book. It's just going to be her. She's doing line edits, and then further on next year, I will be going through the process of setting it up for publication. Now, while I have this production schedule in mind, some of these projects that if I have time for, I'll complete. I will set up that pre-order, which, spoiler alert, this book will be coming out before my thriller next year, but I don't have the dates quite yet. And I'm also going to create a launch schedule similar to, as I mentioned, for the thriller. Are you out of breath? Because I'm out of breath. I'm out of breath because I did basically none of this. So to recap a little bit, I tried skeleton drafting, which is sort of something that's been penned or coined by Steph Green, at least in the way that I think about it. I took one of her courses because I love taking courses. So I had taken her course, and I'm like, hey, I really want to sort of hack my way through the first draft process. In hindsight, I don't know why I keep trying to change my process, but this was a whole other thing that I dealt with during Vlogmas that I was trying to change too much. So when I got to this book in November, I got so stuck. I found myself having to write most of the time versus edit. And when I talk about my drafts feeling very skeletal, they are nowhere near as skeletal as what I did for this book. And I just totally hijacked my process. None of these things happened. It was supposed to go to a developmental editor in January. I completely canceled that indefinitely. and I don't know when I'm going to come back to it because this book needs so much work. It needs that round of edit that I should have done in November, but instead in November, I was basically doing a draft 0.5. So it was very frustrating. I got very overwhelmed. So I said I was publishing this book before the thriller, and I don't even know if I am. So that is a whole other thing. The book will eventually get published. It's going to eventually come out, but I just put way too much pressure on myself. I had a lot of work changes in quarter 3 and 4 of 2021. So I just put too many things on my plate. So that is that for this goal. So basically, I just finished a draft 0.5. That's all I did. And that took me from the end of October, I believe, through the end of December. I stopped around the week of Christmas, and I haven't looked at it since. I hope this is somewhat hopeful to you if you've ever came across the process of not achieving your goals. It's okay. Sometimes it really, for me especially, because I like to set a goal and do it, I've learned to be a little more lenient with myself and just sort of work on what I can at the time. This is a season of my life, having a young child, and I know that things will be different in future years, and maybe I'll be able to ramp myself up to the pace that I used to be at. But for right now, I'm not there. Already a lot, and I'm already getting overwhelmed, but I'm so excited to get started. And for goal number 3 of quarter 4, I am going to be outlining, possibly starting to draft, the last book in the Life After series, Soul Betrayed. So in the process of getting Soul Possessed ready, I tend to get really into my characters and my world building, and I really wanted to just jump right into the last book in the series. That book is getting a complete overhaul, because when I reread it after Reversion, I'm just not happy where it ended up at all. I was a very new author at that point, and with a digital publisher, now looking back, the process was so fast to get through that I think I pretty much did the best. To give some sort of context, so I worked on Soul Taken for many years. I want to say 4 or 5. I can never really nail it down unless I think about it. So then I sold that book, and then it came out in June 2013. So I signed a contract in, I believe, December 2012. Worked on the book with my editor. It came out in June. So I think from about May through August, I had to write a book on deadline for the first time in my life. Now, it is very stressful if you get a traditional publishing deal. A lot of people don't really talk about this, in the sense that it may take you years and years and years to perfect your first book. Once you are on their timeline, you are on their timeline. So usually traditionally published authors maybe get, I'd say at the very most, a year to write that next draft. I was given about 4 months as a new author, and I had to come up with a completely different story, still within the world, because I had originally wrote this book as a standalone, Soul Taken, and then they wanted a trilogy. So I was still new. I was still working full time. And I remember feeling so stressed. And then I think the next book, I had to write an even faster timeline. And so I was sort of on this treadmill, and I couldn't stop and I couldn't stop. So this, I believe all 3 books came out within a year, and 2 of them hadn't been written when I signed that contract. So no excuses here, but this is just sort of what I had to deal with at the time. And I just sort of worked through the feedback that my editor had given me. And that was that. So with that book specifically, it's not my favorite, and it sort of doesn't look like the other books in the series. And while I'm definitely keeping the end, I absolutely love the end. It's the only book that I've written that I can remember that has made me cry. As I've been writing it, I always remember that ending. So I absolutely love the ending, but it needs just a complete overhaul. And as you can tell by my stress levels from Soul Possessed, I didn't even come close to Soul Betrayed in quarter 4. Best I could at the time, but I want to take the opportunity, now that these books are reverted, to put them out there as perfect as I can and as cohesive with the series. And that's a big goal for me for this series as a whole, is to make them very cohesive. So when I read them again after they were reverted, they were sort of like 3 standalone books in the same world, same characters. So I sort of felt that I needed to figure out how to have that sort of rhythm with each book while like moving forward in the story. But you can't have them completely different, because the people who love the first book, when they read the second book, they may feel like, oh, this feels very, very different. And you don't really want that. You want it to be refreshed and new, but not necessarily too different, because you don't want to take away the things that they fell in love with. And that's how this series was. So when I went through Soul Taken, I knew how I wanted to structure the 3 books. So I knew I want to have like a general standalone type mystery that gets resolved within the book. And then the second book will have its own mystery, but you have that overarching mystery as well. So that's definitely something that I knew I should have been doing and I thought I was doing with this series, but I was still a newbie author and it was just a newbie mistake as possible. So really the only project for that is to outline. Of course, if I have time, I would love to at least start the skeleton draft for that book and really get all of my ideas ready to go. Yeah, so those are my goals for quarter 4, and that's sort of why I shifted myself in a sense for how I want to structure my goals for 2022. I felt very frustrated throughout this past year about not achieving my goals. So I definitely want to change that up, and we're gonna go talk about those right now. So what's to come in 2022? This year, I'm not gonna exactly break down every quarter in what exactly I'm going to do, but I might do a little bit of a check-in every quarter, but I'm not gonna be planning any specific projects for any specific quarter this year, sort of publicly, or possibly I may do an end of year wrap up. If you have any preference, if you prefer me to check in every quarter or at the end of the year, do let me know in the comments below, because I'm here for you. So if you missed out on Vlogmas, I did Vlogmas in December. I sort of spiraled into this breakdown with my fiction novel, Soul Possessed, and then I had this overwhelm because I had changed my process when I probably shouldn't have, and then I sort of spiraled down until I hit rock bottom basically, and I just crashed, and I needed to sort of feel that way to really rise to find out what I needed to be doing and what I wanted to do. So my work and my family situation is not changing, and neither is the time that I have to dedicate to my author business. So I have to make the best of what I have to make a lasting career. One thing that came out of 2021 was my love for nonfiction writing. I love writing in my own voice, sort of like how I share with you on this channel. I find it very much rejuvenating, and it's exactly what I need for 2022. So that's how I'm shifting my focus for this year. Let me start off with the projects that I have in mind for this year. I have a potential nonfiction ghostwriting project in the works. I say potential because no contracts have been signed or anything, and I never want to say anything without any of that. So I'm gonna say potential for now, but I'm really excited about it. I have 3 to 4 nonfiction book-shaped projects that are in various stages of development and research. And with nonfiction specifically, I feel so much better and so much more creative when I don't specifically have timelines. These are all going to be self-published projects, so I'm not working toward anyone's specific deadlines for this. But I do like to take my time to make sure I do all of the research and really include all of my thoughts about these particular topics. With fiction, I'd really like to continue to work on publishing my adult thriller and also Soul Possessed, which I worked on in December, and sort of work toward publication for those 2 novels. I'm seriously burnt out from fiction right now, so I'm just gonna sort of go with the flow with those 2 projects, and if they don't get finished by the end of 22, it's fine, but I really want to continue working forward. So I would like to possibly do 1 to 2 more edit rounds for each of these books and really just push them on the path to publication, but I'm not going to pressure myself at all for actually publishing them this year. So those are all new projects, but I do have an old project, not really that old, it's not even a year old yet, but I did want to announce that I am currently working on the audiobook for Take Back Your Book, An Author's Guide to Rights Reversion and Publishing on Your Terms. I'm so excited about this. I found an amazing narrator that I'm so excited to work with. Currently she has the book. I listened to and I approved the 15-minute sample, and I'm thrilled to be able to publish that this year. If anything, that will definitely be coming out. And I did want to know, are you an audiobook listener? Do you like listening to audiobooks? Do you have a preference for listening fiction, nonfiction? I'd love to know in the comments below. Now, when it comes to social media marketing and where I decide to be outside of my writing, I really want to bring it back to the basics a bit, because I have such little time, and I'm really gonna focus on YouTube for 2022. Now, I am not going to be focusing on subscriber count. Even though I love new subscribers, I love anyone who wants to share my journey with me and be a part of this writing community, but I just don't think that's something I'd like to focus on necessarily. I really want to work on building the community, and I don't need to put a specific number on that. I love the conversations I have with you in the comments and on my community tab and everything, so I'm not going to focus on numbers, but I really want to bring you some awesome content this year. So right now I have 4 different series of videos in the works. I'm going to be working on 2 of those series in quarter 1 of 2022 and the second 2 in the second quarter of 2022. So the way that I have planned all of them, they are going to last about a quarter, maybe a little more, and I'm so excited to bring them to you. And one of them has been sort of this back burner situation that I constantly get messages about, and I am excited to continue to share my process. So I know that's a little vague, but I am going to start that series next week. So hopefully you will be here for that. So these series are going to be more publishing and more author-centric videos, not necessarily craft type videos. With these videos on YouTube, I am going to be working hard on repurposing the content. So if you have no idea what that means, basically, it's sort of a hack for creating content on many different platforms, starting from one piece of creative content, which is your core content. So say I create a video on this channel, and then I go to Instagram and write a whole series of different posts, and then I go on my blog and I write many different things, and then I go on my podcast and I talk about something else. Instead of doing all of those things where you would sort of split up your creativity, starting with the one core content and then taking bits and pieces, reshaping it, and bringing it to another platform, sort of gearing it toward that platform, is how I can appear on many different platforms, but I just create it one time. And I have been trying to do that over the last year, but I'm really going to focus on that this year because I think it's very important. Even though I don't believe that social media necessarily sells books or sells courses or anything like that, I think appearing on them and creating platforms and creating communities is definitely important. So for instance, I would take this video that I'm doing next week, I would take the transcript of that video and create a blog post. I take the audio from that video and put it on my podcast. I take little snippets of the post, create some images, put them on Instagram or create a video for Instagram, things like that. With the creative content part, which is the more intensive part, actually done, the breaking down of it actually becomes more of administrative work than creative, and for me that administrative work actually moves faster than the creative work, if that makes sense. I'm really excited to bring all of this content to you on my channel because I have had many conversations with you and in my DMs about all of these topics, and it seems like something you're interested in. So in terms of my reading goals, I can't really be an author if I don't enjoy reading, can I? Well, ever since 2020, I've had a little bit of an issue with reading as much as I used to. I tried to push myself a little bit harder in 2021, but I still fell into all of these slumps. And I found that when I was reading, it was something I was super interested in, something that captured me right away, and then I couldn't put it down. So I'm sort of at a binge reading mentality, And so I don't really have specific number goals for 2022. So this is going to sort of be my year of research and enjoyment reading. I have sort of become very unapologetic for how little I read, but since I am doing all of these nonfiction projects, I want to do a lot of research, and that is sort of bringing up my excitement so that hopefully I will blow through a lot of books that I bought recently to talk about the different topics for you. So I suppose my goal is to read for inspiration and enjoyment this year. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, I have a special sale going on right now. So I have a sale going on exclusively on my website for my ebooks. I have Soul Taken up there, which is the first book in the Life After series. This is a young adult paranormal novel. Also my debut nonfiction book, Take Back Your Book, An Author's Guide to Rights, Reversion, and Publishing on Your Terms. Both of those ebooks are available for 25% off if you use the coupon that is showing on your screen. And that deal is only available until January 13th, so be sure to hop on over there. And if you have any questions about downloading the book, my website is hooked up with BookFunnel, and they have an amazing customer service team that will be able to assist you. But if you would like to reach out to me if you have any issues, feel free to email me or let me know in the comments below. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video and learning all about my goals for this year. If you have any goals that you've set up so far, either this quarter or this year, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to cheer you on, and I'd love to see what you're hoping to accomplish this year. So that's all I have for you today, and I will see you next week.